Alrighty, so week number 2 is in the books, and originally I was going to do the review of all the nightcap game from yesterday action before the Red Bulls versus Galaxy game, but I decided that, you know what, instead of just do a video where I just review the nightcap and then do a separate video where I'm going to be talking about the Red Bulls versus Galaxy game, I might as well just kind of include it into that one. Now, that being said, because we saw a ton of action in that game between the Galaxy versus the Red Bulls, which I'll talk about that game last after I talk about all the things that happened in terms of the nightcap action from yesterday. This video is going to be a little bit longer, but, you know, at least I will say that this review seems to be pretty much on point of what I did in the preview earlier, where, you know, when I did the preview where I did 2 parts of it, where I look at part 1 as all the matinee games that happened on Saturday and also the Lone Friday game between Orlando versus Sporting KC, and then part number 2 was the nightcap game, and also today's game between the Red Bulls versus the Galaxy. Seems like it's the same thing with the review now that I'm doing the second part, looking at the nightcap game and also looking at that Galaxy versus Red Bulls game. But with that being said, let us actually begin, and also looking at these games. Yeah, yesterday there was definitely a lot of surprises in some of the resort yesterday, and we also saw some history that was made in Colorado and Philadelphia, and we'll get to that when we talk about both of those games. But the first game we're going to talk about is Minnesota and RSL. Now, I'm going to stick with what I said back in the preview, where I said that I'm not going to panic, even if Minnesota somehow lost this game against RSL, because we're only 2 games into the season. There's still a long way before the season is over, and knowing the fact that Minnesota is going to get some reinforcement in the attack, with the fact that, you know, hopefully Abila is going to be back in the starting 11, because he wasn't in the starting 11 or even on the bench for this game. And also recently the Loons did get Adrien Hunou from France, and also there's now rumors that potentially they are going to get Franco Fragpen down in Argentina, that deal to be finished. There's going to be more reinforcement in terms of the attack. That after what we saw in this first 2 games, it's pretty clear that they definitely need some more attacking reinforcement. But that being said, there is no doubt that there's some concern I've seen with this team getting off to a slow start to this season and starting the season 0-2. And really, this was just another game where the Loons attack just looked flat throughout the entire part of this game. And also the defense, I mean, they once again make some key mistake on the defensive end, and those key mistake was capitalized for RSL in this game. Now, in the first half, Reynoso did had a shot that just went wide after it was deflected. Reynoso, I didn't think he had a good game again. And again, I'm not going to panic just yet. The fact that Reynoso hasn't really had the same impact that he had last season, because I feel like it was always going to be unrealistic by saying that Reynoso is going to match what he did last year. Like, what he did last year was just absolutely insane. But, you know, he certainly hasn't had a great start to the season, and I guess the reason why he hasn't really got off to a good start to the season is teams are start to try to be more physical with him. And this is a thing that I think Reynoso is going to have to deal with, where teams are going to be more physical with him, and teams are going to try to foul him more often because they know that he is going to be the main playmaker of the team. And it's up to Reynoso to, you know, from what I've seen in the first 2 games, it seems like he's kind of feel frustrated and also been begging the referee for some of the fouls that he has. And I know, you know, it can be frustrating if you're a player that's been fouled by your opponent multiple times, but sometimes you're going to have to just take it with a grain of salt and just kind of move on and focus that you definitely have the ability to trying to make some play. So that's something that I hope Reynoso can eventually figure things out, and not like what we saw in the first 2 games, where you can clearly see he has really looked frustrated with the way that opponents are just keep hacking him every single minutes they get. Now, Lur did had a chance to score in the 10th minute, but unfortunately he puts it wide. Minnesota was off to a good start and was on the front foot, but that wouldn't last because RSL started to come back into this game, and they would score the opening goal of this game as Anderson Julio would score his first ever career MLS goal from Rubin. And this was coming off of a lightning counterattack, where originally I thought Chase Gasper did a good job in terms of stopping that lightning counterattack, but then I'm not sure that he kind of caught into 2 minds, where he was thinking of either maybe maybe take a dribble or decide to just boots that one in, but he basically just did none of that. And then Rubin basically took that ball right back to him, and then basically RSL continued to go on that lightning counterattack that they were, and eventually got the opening goal of this game. And then 10 minutes later, they scored again, and it's again the same two players that contribute in the goal. It's Anderson Julio getting his second MLS career goal from Rubio Rubin to make it 2-0 in favor of RSL. And again, a mistake here from Chase Gasper, where he basically had a WTF turnover, gave it right to Rubin, who basically took that one and basically slides it to the middle to Julio, who was just completely on mark, and tapped it into the empty net. And yeah, just like that, RSL was 2-0 in this game, and you can hear the 6,000 so that was Allianz Field. They were completely stunned of what they have seen. I mean, I don't think anybody at that stadium was expected that the Loons would be 2-0 down heading into halftime. And I also wrote that Minnesota defense, they look laughable so far. Like, this defense, the way that they play in this first two games, look very similar to what we saw in the first two seasons, when this defense was pretty much the laughing stock of the league. Now, Toya did smack a 19-yard shot high in the 43rd minute as we head to halftime with a 2-0 advantage in favor of RSL. Then Finley missed wide on the volley in the 46th minute, and I was hoping maybe this team can get things going and maybe get an early goal back, but instead, despite the fact that Finley did had a chance to get that early goal for Minnesota, it was RSL, the one that continued to search for that third goal. Rubin's short-range shot in the 48th minute was blocked by his own teammate Julio, and unfortunately Julio, as he kind of blocked that shot, he was actually in an offside position, so that was kind of not a good moment between both of these guys. But really, I think both of these guys, if they can be that kind of attacking spark for this RSL team, maybe this RSL team, which, heading into the season, I was worried that they might not have enough on the attack, but if both of those guys can get going, maybe they can prove me wrong, and that they actually might have a good attacking duo to score the goals for this team. Then Dane Sinclair was able to rob Justin Glad in the 53rd minute, and I also wrote RSL looked like they were more dangerous for the third goal than Minnesota was able to get one back. Now, eventually the Loons did get one back, but it came with 5 minutes left in this game, as Robin Laird would score from Justin McMaster. That's McMaster's first ever assist, so congratulations to the young kid. But, because of the fact that goal happened in the 85th minute, even though the Loons did had some chances to maybe come back from this, I thought it was kind of too late, and especially how bad the attack was throughout this game. I didn't think we were going to come back in this game, and that was the case, as RSL would get all 3 points in this game and get their first win against Minnesota at Allianz Field. The shots in this game, 23 shots compared to 11 that RSL had, 2 shots on goal compared to 4 that RSL had, 12 shots off target compared to 4 that RSL had, 9 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that RSL had, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that RSL had in this game. Now, despite the fact that Minnesota did outshoot RSL in this game, and that they had 23 shots, they only had 2 of them that was on goal. And that is the problem with the attack, where, I said this before, it doesn't matter how many shots that you put on the stat chart. The most important thing is that if you do not put enough shots on goal and really trouble the opposition goalkeeper, you're not going to score goals. And this is a clear example where, it doesn't matter if Minnesota decided to spray tons of shot from either inside the box or outside the box. If it's not on target and does not trouble Ochoa, then there's really no point of them to potentially score the goals in this game. Now, speaking of Ochoa, before I actually move on to another game that had a surprising result, let's talk about that incident that happened right after the game. So, after the game, Ochoa decided that he was going to punt the ball right into the Wonderwall, and obviously that triggered a lot of Minnesota players, and definitely triggered Adrian Heath after what he said in the post-game interview, because there was a bit of a scrimmage between both of these teams, and as I mentioned, Adrian Heath definitely voiced his frustration and definitely called out Ochoa for punting the ball into his own supporter section. Even Michael Boxall even said that after the game, and he even said that told the reporter that you make sure you get that message to him because I want to hear it from him. Now, obviously, I know a lot of Minnesota fans are still very upset about that. In fact, I actually looked on the Reddit page yesterday, and there was a lot of Loons fans that was very, very frustrated and actually very salty about that incident that Ochoa has, and almost like they were kind of being more frustrated about that than actually the result of this game actually play out. And as a Loons fan, I'm going to try my best to not be biased in terms of this, but I do think that what Ochoa did was not right. I think, this is going to be something that I think he's going to have to learn. And I'll give him the pass because of the fact that he is a young goalkeeper and he's still trying to mature. Because, when you, of course, are able to get all 3 points, you should not have to kind of overly celebrate and just kind of do the action that what he did, which is just punt the ball right into the supporter section. Now, that being said, I also think what Adrian Heath said in his post-game interview, that was kind of out of order. And in some way, this is also another thing that frustrates me about Adrian Heath. Like, there are kind of two things that frustrates me about Adrian Heath. Well, actually, there was one thing that frustrated me about Adrian Heath, but recently there's now a second thing that I really don't like about Heath in terms of his managerial style with this team. One of them is obviously his lack of substitution, but the second thing is him just kind of create narratives that he doesn't really need to create. And here he basically created a narrative where he was getting very angry at Ochoa for what he did and kind of call him out. And at the end of the day, as much as he's going to do that, everybody's just going to point to Heath and point to the scoreboard of this game, because at the end of the day, RSL was able to win this. Ochoa was able to beat your team. And really, I think the only reason why he decided to do this, besides maybe creating a narrative that he doesn't need to do, is he's trying to hide away the fact that the Loons are 0-2 to start the season. Because, with how much talent this team has, there's no way in the world this team should be right now in the bottom of the Western Conference. And I really hope that, this is a thing where I said earlier there about, with those attacking talent coming into this team, hopefully it can definitely inject in terms of some more goal scoring ability for this team, and also get better resort as the season goes on, because there's no way this can continue. There's just no way in the world with how much talent this team has, and especially pretty much this is almost the same team that made it to the Western Conference final last year, and was just minutes away from reaching their first MLS Cup, would underachieve like the way that they are heading into this season. But that being said, let us now move on into the next game, which is between the Union versus Inter Miami. And like I said, this was another surprising result, because coming into this game, the Union, if you remember last season, besides that loss that they suffered against New England in the playoffs, they did not lose a single home game in the regular season. Well, we're one home game into the 2021 season for the Union, and they already lost their first one. And this wasn't like the fact that, they were going with a relatively weak squad, and maybe that's the reason why they weren't able to win against Miami. No, this was Miami actually did well to outplay this Union team that was pretty much going with the same roster. And, with the way how they kind of gone with the same roster and didn't really had a lot of success in this game, you wonder if there's going to be some concern heading into that Wednesday game against Atlanta. And especially what I'm going to talk about, how Atlanta looked very impressive in their weekend game against the Chicago Fire. Now, in the first 15 minutes, there was not much to speak of between both of these teams. Then Morgan and Flood kind of exchanged some choice words. And another thing that I would say about this matchup is that it seemed like both of these teams do not like each other. And I think this all started from what happened last year, where, remember when Higuain, of course, missed that penalty, and then the Union player kind of let him hear about it, and Higuain kind of got salty about it, and there was kind of some pushing and shoving, and we kind of saw that carry over in this game. And Morgan and Flock were kind of the first one that was kind of exchanging some choice words and not being very nice to each other, before Robinson did rattle the post after a WTF turnover from the Union. I thought the Union, there was tons of sloppy giveaway that they had in the midfield. And I also thought that this was a very physical and disjointed game, and there wasn't really much to speak of in terms of chances besides that shot that was off the post from Robinson in the 18 minutes for both of these teams to speak of. So we head to halftime with a 0-0 score, and heading into the second half, the Union had a big chance in the 49th minute when Shabilko went through on goal, but McCarthy was able to deny him. Then the Union was able to get their opening goal. It's Jamer Montero that is able to score from Shabilko to give the Union a 1-0 lead, and you're thinking up to that point, okay, the Union finally are able to get the breakthrough. They should be maybe able to score 2 or 3 more goals against this Miami team that has to be frustrated. The fact that I thought they play a very good role game up to that point, and now they find themselves 1-0 down heading into the last 30 minutes of the game. Now, Corey Burke, who just came on at the hour mark, he missed it high off the net, and that would have been an incredible introduction of him just coming on 20 seconds in and scoring a goal to give the Union a 2-0 lead. There was more pushing and shoving between both of these teams in the 67th minute, and then in the 73rd minute, Miami would equalize, and it's the Higuain combination with Gonzalo Higuain scoring from Federico Higuain. What a ball this was from Higuain, deliver it from the set piece, with his brother Gonzalo Higuain able to head that one in. And just like that, the game was all tied up at 1 apiece. And then 10 minutes later, we saw some history in this game with Federico Higuain scoring from Figueroa to make it 2-1 in favor of Inter Miami. And with that goal that Federico Higuain scored, this is actually the first time in MLS history where we see both brothers on the same team able to get on the score sheet. And I'm kind of surprised that has never happened, because I swear that there's been times where we've seen brothers playing on the same team. And I swear that, we talk about the Chara brothers in Portland. I swear that they probably had a game where both Jimmy Chara and Diego Chara was able to score on the same time. And speaking of which, I'll talk about later in this game where we almost saw a situation like this one where the two Chara brothers was able to combine with a goal for the Timbers. But yeah, first time in league history where we see two brothers able to score a goal on the same night. Then it was almost 3-1 in favor of Miami as Blake was able to rob Higuain on a header. But in the end, Inter Miami, impressive 2-1 road win against the defending Supporters Shield champion. As the shots in this game, 13 shots compared to 6 that Miami has. Both teams had 3 shots on goal. 8 shots off target for the 2 that Miami has. 2 shots that was blocked for the 1 that Miami has. And possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession that the Union has in this game. And again, for the Union, this was not a good performance whatsoever. And, they definitely needs to get better heading into that CONCACAF Champions League quarterfinal game against Atlanta, which I believe the first leg is going to be happening in Atlanta. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is a game that, first of all, I remember how I said yesterday that I actually paused all 4 of those games that was kicking off around the same time to do the review of the matinee game. Well, I kind of lie, and I actually didn't watch 2 of these games between New England and DC United and Atlanta versus Chicago, because I was actually editing my match vlog while trying my best to keep track of both of these games that was happening. But in some way, as much as I hate to say it, I'm glad I did not watch this game, because let's be honest, this was probably the worst game we have seen so far this season, where there was really not much that happened in this game. And I even try my best to put some notes in this game, and this is really kind of the best that I can come up with. And I think maybe even the most surprising thing about this game is, as boring this game turns out, we almost saw 2 own goals that was scored in this game. Now, it was a slow start in this game for the first 15 minutes. That would be a telling tale throughout the full 90 minutes. Gustavo Bou did really have the only chance of the first half when he put a 34-yard shot that was right to Chris Sides. But as we head to the second half with a 0-0 score, New England would actually get on the score sheet. And unfortunately, Heinz Ike, who was the hero in last week win that DC had against NYCFC, well, unfortunately, he basically turned into a villain as he unfortunately conceded the goal here and score one into his own net. And I think what happened here was he was trying to maybe clear that one away, and the ball kind of got caught between his legs, and basically when that happened, he basically miscleared it, and ends up into the back of the net for or in the back of DC net. But yeah, it was a 1-0 lead that New England has. Probably one that I didn't think that they deserved, knowing the fact that neither of these teams really do much. But they did try to make it 2-0 when Carlos Hill put a bullet of a shot from 23 yards out that just went wide. Buxa then did the same thing 1 minute later, and also pretty much the same result. It just went wide off the post. Then Andrew Phil, he probably saw what happened to Heinz Ike earlier, and he's probably maybe showing some condolence toward the youngster, unfortunately scoring an own goal or putting one into his own net. So he decided to kind of do the same thing, but seems like the post was not having any of it, as Farrell real kind of tried to score an own goal, but unfortunately it hits the post. And I know it says it was saved by the post, but you know what I'm trying to say here, where Farrell was trying to hand DC a goal back after that unfortunate incident that they had about 20 minutes ago. But yeah, that was really the last action and the last thing I kind of wrote in terms of the notes, because really the last 20 minutes, it was definitely just a really boring kind of stretch where nobody really can get anything going. And in the end, New England is able to walk away with a 1-0 game, and the shots in this game, only 12 shots in combined that both of these teams had, with both having 6 shots apiece. 2 shots on goal committed, just 1 that DC had. 3 shots off target for the 2 that DC had. 1 shot that was blocked by the 3 that DC had. And possession-wise, 50% possession between both of these teams. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think if you're a Revs fan, you'll probably take it. The fact that despite the fact that they definitely did not play well whatsoever, they still were able to get all 3 points. And if you're DC, this has got to be frustrated, because as bad as they kind of play in this game, their opponent also didn't play very well. And usually when that happens, maybe that pretty much cancel things out and it ends in a 0-0 draw. But on a bigger note, there's also got to be concerned the fact that this kind of performance looks similar to what happened last year with the attack, where the attack was pretty much lifeless throughout most of the game that they played last season. But now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be Chicago versus Atlanta, and this game definitely has more excitement compared to the last game I talked about. And this is also a game that pretty much sums up the Chicago Fire for the past couple of seasons, or maybe I should say kind of sums up the Chicago Fire in terms of last season, where, there's times where the Fire do play well at home and also on the road, but even though they had tons of chances to potentially put more than the 1 goal that they had in this game, they weren't able to do so. Although I will say that the culprit in terms of them not able to finish most of their chances in this game was actually the post. In fact, I think the post was the story of this game, because I think both teams hit a combined 4 posts throughout this game, including one player that I will talk about a little bit later that has the unfortunate honor of getting a hat trick of hitting the post. But in the first half, and the first thing I want to talk about is that there was 21,000 fans that was in attendance in this game, and I believe they opened the full stadium down there in Atlanta, so that's why there was 21,000 fans, and I think that's the most that we had so far this season in terms of limited capacity. Guzan was able to rob Barrich as he pushed that one onto the post in the 8th minute, before Hyman hits one wide from 20 yards out in the 14 minutes, as there was some chances for both of these teams early on, but it would be Atlanta the one that gets the opening goal, and it's Ezekiel Barco hits an absolute thunder of a strike from the free kick. Not only the fact that I wrote goal of the week with a question mark, I think that's probably the goal of the week, because knowing the fact that whenever Atlanta scores a great goal, it's going to end up to be the goal of the week, since Atlanta fans are probably going to stuff the vote on Wednesday when they're voting for goal of the week, and I would be kind of surprised if this turns out not be the goal of the week, because that was just a lovely strike from Barco to give Atlanta a 1-0 lead. Then 8 minutes later, Barrich unfortunately hit the post for the second time in this game, and then Marcelo Marino feels like he wants to join the party of hitting the post, so he did. 37 minutes in, he hits the post off of a deflection. Then Guzan was able to deny CJ Sapon in the 41st minute as the Fire was trying to push for an equalizer, but we head to halftime with Atlanta getting a 1-0 lead over the Fire. But in the second half, the Fire wastes no time to get the equalizer, and it's still Janovic would score from Sekulic and Calvo to tie the game up at 1 apiece. But just as you think maybe Chicago might have turned the momentum of this game and tried to push for a second one, Atlanta didn't feel like they were happy that they conceded a goal very early in this game, so they immediately tried to press for the go-ahead goal, which they eventually would get it in the 65th minute, and this was an unfortunate situation with Kappenhoff, of course, scoring the own goal there to give Atlanta a 2-1 lead up to that point. But really, this was just bad defending for the Fire, unable to clear the ball away in a dangerous area. Then Joseph Martinez, who was summoned in the second half, tried to score his first goal of the season, but he was denied by Calvo, who makes a great block on his attempt. Then Beric is the guy that unfortunately has the unfortunate honor of getting a hat trick of hitting the post, as he hit the post in the 81st minute. And I think this was kind of like a looping, being little ball, and it seems like it might have destined for the top left of the corner, and then Guzan, who I think he was kind of come off his lines a little bit, he immediately tried to scramble back and hope that he isn't going to beaten. And I think if it wasn't for that ball hitting the post, Guzan would have been beaten at that situation, and the game would have all tied up at 2 apiece up to that point. But in the 84th minute, Hyman basically called it a game as he scores to make it 3-1 in favor of Atlanta, and that would be the final score of this game, as Atlanta gets a good win against Chicago and gets their first win of the season. Shots in this game, 18 shots compared to the 12 that Chicago has, 6 shots on goal compared to the 5 that the Fire has, 4 shots off target compared to 4 that Chicago has, 8 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that the Fire has, and possession-wise, Atlanta has the better of the possession with 61% possession compared to 39% possession that the Fire has had. And let's see if Atlanta can continue that momentum that they had in this game and carry that over in that CCL quarterfinal game against the Union on Wednesday. And as for the Fire, again, this kind of just sums up in terms of what happened last season, where, you know, they might had games where they had a lot of chances and maybe play well enough to potentially get a draw, but in the end that just turned out not to be the case, and they unfortunately does not get anything out of this game. But now moving on in terms of the next match. So you notice I am wearing Austin FC because history was made in Colorado, as Austin FC not only scored their first ever goal in their club history in this game, they also got their first ever win in club history in this game, as they were able to win 3-1 against the Rapids, and there was no doubt that this was a very impressive performance by Austin FC. And this was kind of the performance that was similar to what happened last week against LAFC, where, you know, I thought last week, when even in that 2-0 loss that they suffer, I thought they played very well, and that unfortunately they just weren't able to put away those chances to have anything to show for the good game that they play. Well, this game, they took away their opportunity, and it's unsurprising the fact that when you take your opportunity, you could have a high chance of ending up on the winning side of this game. But in the first half, and 6 minutes into this game, Jared Stroud almost made history for himself and for Austin FC, as he shot one that just went a little bit wide before Rubio did sail a shot over in the 11th minute. Then 20 or 31st minutes in, Stuver was able to deny Rubio, as Colorado, you know, in the first half, I thought the Rapids were the better team, and that they were really pressing to try to get the opener, which they eventually did in the 36th minute. And it's Shinishiki that scores from Jack Price, and this was a very Colorado goal with the way that Jack Price delivered a beautiful corner into the box, and Shinishiki basically heads it in to give the Rapids a 1-0 lead, and that would be the score heading into the second half. So heading into the second half, Dominguez hits the post on the free kick in the 48th minute, and if that went in, that would have been a very, very sweet first ever goal for Austin FC, and a goal that I think you could say that could win goal of the week. I mean, as much as I said this earlier about Barco scoring an amazing goal, I'm pretty sure Austin fans are also going to try their best to stuff as much votes as possible, and at the end of the day, they'll probably stuff more votes than what Atlanta did, and able to get get their team and get them gets probably the goal of the week if that one actually went in. But unfortunately, the post denies him there. But I thought Austin started the second half strong, and you can clearly see that they were definitely looking closer and closer of getting that first ever goal in their club history, and they eventually did so. It came at the hour mark when Fagundes gets the honor of getting the first ever goal from Austin FC history. And even though this wasn't really the most impressive goal, because Fagundes kind of tapped that one into the back post after Yarbo did make a save, but Yarbo did allow a big rebound to Fagundes, who pounced on it and tapped it into the back. And then it's definitely one that I'm pretty sure if you're an Austin FC fan, you're going to remember that goal for a very long time. And maybe 20 years down the line, that's going to be a goal that's going to be replayed in the history of Austin FC, because that is officially their first ever goal in their club history. But it doesn't seem like they was just settled for that part of history, because just 8 minutes later they would take the lead, and it's Dominguez who scores from Gallagher and Fagundes to make it 2-1 in favor of Austin FC. Before 4 minutes later, it's Dominguez again, scoring from Redis to make it 3-1 in favor of Austin, and it's in a span of just 12 minutes. Austin have turned this from a 1-0 deficit to now leading 3-1 in this game. And obviously the crowd at the Sporting Goods Park was absolutely stunned, but you can probably hear how loud it was in terms of the Austin FC traveling supporter, which throughout these first two games there was definitely a lot of traveling support from this Austin FC side, probably even more than what we saw last week in that game that they play against LAFC down at Bank of California Stadium. But they were really loud, not only when their team able to score their first ever career goal, but also the two other goals that they scored, because they knew that this could be the night where they could make two piece of history, scoring their first ever goal and also getting their first ever win in MLS history. But instead of just kind of settle for a 3-1 win and maybe shut things down, they were hungry to try to get the fourth. Yarbrough was able to deny Redis, who was trying to join the goal-scoring party. Austin, I thought at that point, was just all over the Colorado Rapids. Before late in the game, Redis tried to get on the score sheet again and pretty much put the cherry on the top for Austin FC, but Yarbrough was able to deny him. But in the end, Austin FC with a 3-1 win against the Rapids. Shots in this game, 19 shots compared to 14 that Austin has. 6 shots on goal compared to 7 that Austin has. Both teams had 6 shots off target. 7 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that Austin has. And possession-wise, 50% possession for both of these teams. But again, congratulations to Austin FC getting their first ever win in their club history, and first of probably many that we're going to see with this team, because again, as I said, with how I've seen Austin play in this first two games, I am very impressed of how well that they are playing. And this also kind of makes me a little bit worried heading into next week, because guess who Austin is going to play next week? Oh yeah, that's right. It's the team that I just mentioned, how I wasn't going to panic about how they're getting to an 0-2 start, but now I am concerned the fact that it could be 0-3 when Minnesota is going to be taking on Austin FC at Allianz Field heading into next week matchup. But now moving on into the last game on this board is the Portland Timbers and the Houston Dynamo. So the Timbers coming into this game, as expected, they rested most of their starters. Well, I wouldn't say they rested most of their starters, but some of their most important players didn't really come into this game until the second half, and it's understandable because they do have that big home game against Club America in the CCL quarterfinal. But despite the fact that they did rested some of their starter, they were still able to get all 3 points and get their first win of the season. And I think one of the things that was probably the most shocking thing that happened in this game is Darren Esprilla scored a goal, as he scores from Bonilla to give the Timbers a 1-0 lead 6 minutes into this game. And I know I've been giving Darren Esprilla a hard time talk about he's not allowed to score a goal unless it's November, but in some way it's kind of true. I mean, when you look at most of the goals that he has scored, it's always come when playoff time has happened. So when he of course scored during a time when it's not playoff time, I think that is kind of a very shocking kind of thing. And you just kind of remember, is this actually like October, or are we actually in April right now? Because I thought Esprilla was not allowed to score a goal beside besides in November. But all kidding aside, I feel like Asprilla deserved a goal, and especially the fact that I think he has played very well in the last couple of games, where in the last couple of games he has been able to get the start, because we still haven't heard anything about whether or not if Abovasi is eventually going to be back with this team, or whether or not if Sebastian Blanco is also going to start making his way back to this Timbers team. Now, Fafa Pico did drive a shot that went wide in the 16th minute before Jimmy Chara missed it high, and this is where I talked about earlier that this would have been an opportunity where we would have seen the two Chara brothers combined with a goal, and what a headline that would be, where on one end we have the Higuain brother combining with a goal, and then on the other game we have the Chara brother combining in a goal in the same week. But it wasn't meant to be, because Jimmy Chara unfortunately wasn't able to put that one away. But then in the 29th minute, Houston would get the equalizer, and it's Paredes that unfortunately scored the own goal here. And originally they said that it was Garcia that scores the goal for the Dynamo, but then they later changed it to Paredes, because it seemed like Paredes was the one that got a touch of that one, inflicted unfortunately into his own net from a dangerous free kick, and it wasn't Bonet Garcia that got any contact out of that. But the Dynamo wouldn't care. They tied the game up at 1 apiece. Bonilla then hits the side netting in the 42nd minute before Antonello was able to deny Pasher on a one-on-one opportunity, and we head to halftime, honors even between both of these teams. So in the second half, Asprilla, who I mentioned how he kind of break that little curse of us thinking that he cannot score a goal unless it's October. Well, he tried to go for a second goal, but unfortunately he hits it wide. But in the 73rd minute, the Timbers would retake the lead, and it's Paredes, the one that would score from oh god, I don't know why I wrote Morris there. It's actually Mora that the one that scored. There's no Morris in this Timbers team. There's Morris in the Sounders and Columbus team, but there's no Morris on this team. But that's actually Mora, the one that I was supposed to write in terms of on the assist chart. But yeah, that gives the Timbers a 2-1 lead up to that point. They did try to put the game away in the 87th minute when Valeri, who came in at halftime, trying to put it away from a short-range effort, but unfortunately he hits it high. Then 1 minute into stoppage time, Van Raken missed a shot high from short range, and you just wonder, with all these missed chances that the Timbers were getting, are they going to come back to haunt them? But thankfully that didn't happen, because the Timbers, unlike what they did last year, where they tends to have that tendency of giving up late goals, it didn't happen in this one. They were able to hang on with a 2-1 win against the Houston Dynamo. And the shots in this game, 23 shots compared to 10 that Houston has, 5 shots on goal compared to 3 that the Dynamo has, 13 shots off target compared to 5 that Houston has, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that the Dynamo has, and possession-wise, 47% possession compared to 53% possession that Houston has. And if you're the Timbers, this is definitely an impressive win, considering the fact that I mentioned how, knowing the fact that they are going to focus more on CONCACAF Champions League, at least for the first couple of weeks of the season. I was fearing that maybe the Timbers could get off to a bad start, because they were putting a lot of their reserve squad. But then one thing I also forgot, that this is also a Timbers team that has a lot of good depth players, and these depth pieces definitely showed up in this game against the Dynamo, where for the Dynamo, it's kind of the same old story. Unable to win on the road, and unable to get anything on the road, as they have always been a team that has not been able to do well whenever they play on the road. But that being said, I am now going to switch boards and look at the last game that happened in terms of match week number 2 of the 2021 MLS season. So last game of this weekend's action turns out to be the most exciting game in week number 2 of this season. And I know I said yesterday that that game between San Jose and Dallas was probably the most entertaining game so far in week number 2, but I think this one tops it, because this was definitely a game that featured a lot of goals and a lot of shithousery, and also a very, very long game. I mean, both of the stoppage time in this game combined in total of 17 minutes, and that this game actually didn't end until we get to the 101st minute between both of these teams. Now, in the first half, half, the Red Bulls, they had most of the possession early and try to play direct early into this game. And also, I want to note that despite the fact that there was only 4,000 fans at Dignity Health Sports Park, it definitely feels like there was 40,000 fans. Like the chant that the Galaxy was doing early in this game was just so loud that you would be mistaken that if you actually hear that blindfolded, that there would only be 4,000 fans that was in the stands for this game. But in the 9th minute, Chicharito would score to make it 1-0 in the Galaxy, and also proving that game against Inter Miami wasn't actually a fluke. Chicharito would end up to have a monster day in this game, and I can feel it on Monday when the media around MLS is going to talk about this game and also talk about the action throughout this weekend. Chicharito is going to be basically the headlines in terms of this week's action. Now, in the 17th minute, Cornell did deny Chicharito, and that was actually the first shot that Chicharito shoot that did not end up into the back of net. They actually show like a stats where Chicharito up to that point, he actually had 3 total shot in his season, and all 3 of them actually went up into the back of the net, and that was actually the first one that unfortunately did not go into the back of the net, as Cornell was able to make a good full stretch save to deny him there. The Red Bulls, I thought their direct play was good in this game, but then whenever they get to the final third, this is where the problem begins, where they just didn't really have any creativity in the final third and able to put a good final ball to create chances in this game. But that being said, about 2 minutes after I wrote that down, they got the equalizer. I mean, of course they get the equalizer, because I feel like so far this season with me, every time trying to write something that criticizes a team, immediately need that team trying to prove me wrong and score a goal. And it happened here again with Andrew Guzman scoring his first ever MLS goal from Brian White to tie the game up at 1 apiece. Then it was almost 2-1 in favor of the Red Bulls when Jonathan Bond had to make a full stretch save to rob Fabio, who basically smacked that one onto the volley. Then there was a concerning moment, if you're a Red Bulls fan or even an MLS fan in general, that Caden Clark actually collided with Saldana and went down with what looked like a head injury. Fortunately, he would actually be able to continue for the rest of the game after he did the concussion protocol, and they said that it seems like he is good enough to go for the rest of the game. Although as this game kind of went out, there was signs that maybe Gerhard Struber was going to try to take it safe and maybe sub him off at halftime. That actually didn't turns out to be the case, as he would continue for the rest of this game. And then in the 42nd minute, just as we thought that this game was going to head to halftime with a 1-1 tie, it's Chicharito again scoring from not Brendan Vasquez, but Victor Vasquez. Brendan Vasquez actually plays for FC Cincinnati right now, but the Victor Vasquez, former TFC player, was the one that of course assisted here, and this was vintage Victor Vasquez, and I think he probably even turned the clock about 5 years back with him just spraying a beautiful ball there, and Chicharito basically take advantage of that. Now, originally they did say that this goal was going to be disallowed for offside, but they did go to VAR to check to see whether or not if Chicharito was in an offside position, and in the end, he clearly was not. He was actually level with the final Red Bulls defender, and the goal, of course, would count, and the Galaxy would head to halftime with a 2-1 lead in this one. But heading into the second half, you can see the Red Bulls, they were really pressing for the equalizer, and that the Galaxy, it seems like they were trying to sit back and trying to absorb as much pressure as possible. But just as you thought maybe the Red Bulls, with how much pressure that they put on the Galaxy, eventually it's going to unbuckle. Instead, it was the Galaxy, the one that was able to grab the third goal, and it would be Chicharito, who, as I said, the headlines on Monday is definitely going to be there, and they're going to, I bet MLS media is going to just spend like almost an hour talk about how Chicharito is just absolutely amazing, and that now you see how he finally scored his first ever hat-trick in his career. Things are going to work out. And I will say that so far Chicharito is obviously off to a great start with 5 goals in his first 2 games, but it's only 2 games. I will be very interesting to see whether or not if Chicharito can continue the form that he's in, but obviously you can see he is clearly a man on a mission, and clearly in in kind of one of those striker form where everything he touches, it actually ends up into the back of the net. So yeah, he scores to make it 3-1 in favor of the Galaxy up to that point. But then just 2 minutes later, at the Red Bulls would get the equalizer, or not the equalizer, but they did get one back. It's Caceres Jr. that scores from Tarek to make it 3-2 in favor of the Galaxy, and I thought that was just poor set-piece defending from the Galaxy. And again, when you don't clear the ball away and let the ball dangling into the box, somebody eventually is going to take advantage of that. Although I would say that wasn't actually the case. That was more like, I think Tarek was trying to flick it over Jonathan Bond. But, you know, even though he kind of hit it that one, it somehow ends up into the path of Caceres Jr., who basically puts it in to make this game a one-goal game. And all of a sudden, it's game on again between the Galaxy and the Red Bulls. And it was almost 3-3 just 4 minutes later when Jonathan Bond would deny Daniel Roy from long-range effort. By the way, I'm not sure if John Strong, coming into this game, he had a long list of 007 joke that was lining up, because anytime when Jonathan Bond made a great save, he basically made reference to James Bond's movie. And again, I think this is going to be something we're going to continue to see, where I won't be surprised anytime when there's a Galaxy game. And especially, I even look at the schedule, and that the Galaxy actually have 5 more national televised games that is going to be lined up. I won't be surprised there's a lot of these commentators that's going to make reference about the James Bond and the 007 movie, because why not? After all, his last name is Bond, and you know, anytime when that happened, you know they're going to make some reference in terms of that famous movie. But yeah, as I said, he was able to deny Royer from long range, and I thought there was going to be more goals in this game, which probably means that there probably is going to be no more goals in this game, because that's how it works. Anytime when I try to write something that thinks that there's going to be more goals, you know it's probably not going to come true, and this game is going to end up 3-2. But in the 75th minute, Chicharito did have to subbed off with what looked like a cramp or even a hamstring injury. Now, he did kind of had that problem right after when he scored that hat trick, and it looked like he was maybe going to get his curtain call at that point, but the Galaxy decided to let him play on, and eventually he did get his curtain call in the 75th minute. And you know, it's definitely not the curtain call that you wish he would have, with him kind of have to limp off because of that injury. And if you're a Galaxy fan, you better hope that he's not going to be out for a very long time. And you also are hoping that maybe even Jonathan Dos Santos is not going to be out for a long time, because he was another guy that had to be subbed off of what looks like an injury. But mostly for Chicharito, because of how hot he is, the last thing you want your number 9 to do when they are in sizzling form is that they're going to end up on the IR list. Now, after that, I thought there was just way too many giveaway from the Galaxy, as the Red Bulls were really pushing to try to get that third goal. Now, the game did kind of slow down a little bit. There was a lot of stop-and-go situation and a lot of injury for the last 10 minutes of this game. And because of that means we're going to have 10 minutes of stoppage time in this one. And yeah, I mean, I think this is the second time I've seen the Red Bulls have been involved in a game with double-digit stoppage time minutes. The one that I remember where the Red Bulls were involved where they had to play a double-digit stoppage time minute in the second half was that game against Atlanta United. But that was a game where, oh god, I forgot there was like a serious injury that happened in that game, and I think, was it Kamar Lawrence that kind of suffered a serious injury where there was like a long stoppage of play, and that was the reason why there was like 12 minutes of stoppage time. Now this one, you know, there's 10 minutes of stoppage time, mainly because, as I mentioned, in the last 10 minutes of the game, there was just no flow to the game whatsoever. There was like, it feels like every single minute there's at least somebody is on the fort and need to have some treatment because of how stop and go the situation, of course, has went. But as we head into stoppage time, this is when the action can kick back into full gear. The Red Bulls were throwing the kitchen sink, looking to try to get that third goal. Then they, of course, had to go to VAR to see whether or not if there's a possible red card for both Sean Davies or, well, if there's a possible red card for Sean Davis or Drew Yearwood. And I thought, you know, if they're going to take their sweet old time on the VAR check, I have a feeling we're going to go 105 minutes into this game. And then just just 2 minutes later, there was another check where they're going to see whether or not if there was a penalty that was awarded to the Red Bulls, and when Fisher actually brought down Amaya there, the Red Bulls player immediately surround the referee and think that of course was a penalty. And when I look back at the replay, I think that was a good no call, knowing the fact that I think Frankie Amaya was going to he's already in falling down, and that I just think, yes, there was some contact that Fisher of course made, but I don't think it was enough where it was worthy of a penalty. And of course I just mentioned how Amaya was already kind of falling down in that situation. So yeah, therefore no penalty was given to the Red Bulls. The Red Bulls continue to try to push. Royer probably had the best chance as he blasts one high from 20 yards out, but in the end, the Galaxy, they survive in this marathon of the game. As at the end of the game, the shots in this one, 14 shots compared to 7 that the Galaxy had, 6 shots on goal compared to 5 that the Galaxy had, 5 shots off target compared to 1 that the Galaxy had, 3 shots out of block compared to 1 that the Galaxy had, and possession-wise, 53% possession compared to 47% possession that the Galaxy had. But either way, if you're neutral and watching this game, this was definitely one of the more entertaining MLS game we have seen in recent year. And if you're the Galaxy, as much as you're happy that you of course got a 3-2 win and happy that Chicharito continued that sizzling form, there's definitely some concern of what is his health, and that whether or not when he did get subbed off was just because of a cramp and not because of a hamstring injury that is bothering him. And that if you're the Red Bulls, yeah, this is definitely another frustrating game where they had their chances in this game to potentially get maybe more than the 2 goals that they had, and also they had those defensive mistake that they had on the other end that they need to clean up for. But fortunately, they're going to have to move on and try to figure things out, because they're one of the few team now that have started the season on an 0-2 record. But either way, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. I, of course, will see you guys next time.